The world's militaries are constantly evolving, incorporating cutting-edge technology and innovative strategies to maintain their edge. From autonomous drones and cyber warfare to peacekeeping missions and the human toll of conflict, the nature of warfare is being reshaped before our eyes. This video explores the inner workings of modern military operations, delving into the technologies, tactics, and challenges that define contemporary warfare. We'll examine how rising powers like China and India are altering the global balance, how hybrid and asymmetric threats are changing the rules of engagement, and how ethics, adaptability, and international cooperation are now as crucial as firepower. In an uncertain world, understanding the future of the military means understanding its evolving face, both in terms of machinery and the human beings behind it. Inside the modern military. The future of warfare. A new era of technology. Modern warfare is undergoing a fundamental transformation. Where once armed conflicts relied on troop numbers and firepower, today technology plays an increasingly central role. Artificial intelligence, cyber operations, hypersonic weapons, and military developments in space are no longer science fiction. They're shaping the battlefield in real time, with the world's leading powers investing heavily in their advancement. One of the most significant shifts has been the integration of artificial intelligence into military systems. The concept of automated combat systems was discussed seriously in the early 2000s, but by the 2020s, it had become a reality. Military drones, autonomous robots, surveillance platforms, and even self-learning strategic algorithms are already in active use. In 2020, for example, the Turkish-made Karga 2 drone reportedly attacked a human target in Libya without direct operator control. This event sparked widespread concern, marking a potential milestone in the evolution of autonomous weapons. Military AI systems are advancing rapidly. In the US, Project Maven uses machine learning to analyze video streams from drones, helping operators identify targets in real time with high accuracy. China is going even further by developing the concept of intelligentized warfare, where AI manages every stage of combat, from reconnaissance to targeting coordination. Russia, meanwhile, is investing in AI-powered platforms such as the Urun 9 combat robot and battlefield decision support systems for commanders. But the transformation of warfare is not limited to physical weapons. Cyberspace has become a battleground of equal importance. Hackers, malware, and digital sabotage tools can now produce effects comparable to conventional explosives. The most well-known example remains Stuxnet, a computer worm that in 2010 infiltrated and disrupted Iran's nuclear centrifuges. It was the first cyber attack to cause direct physical damage. Since then, cyber operations have become essential to the strategy of any advanced military. In 2022, at the onset of the war in Ukraine, malware such as Whispergate was deployed to disable government systems and infrastructure. Alongside this came information attacks, fake videos, social media manipulation, and forged news sites. These efforts are not aimed at winning battles but at shaping public perception, undermining morale, and fostering internal division. At the same time, a new arms race is underway in the development of hypersonic weapons. These missiles, traveling at speeds above Mach 5, over 6,000 km per hour, are nearly impossible to intercept with current air defense systems. Russia has claimed the combat use of its Kinzhal hypersonic missile. China has tested hypersonic glide vehicles capable of maneuvering unpredictably during flight. In response, the US has launched several programs, including the hypersonic air-breathing weapon concept and the long-range hypersonic weapon. The key feature of hypersonic missiles is their ability to strike within minutes of launch, giving very little time to detect, react, or respond. This compresses decision-making timelines and shifts the strategic balance. Preemptive actions become harder to avoid, and deterrence becomes less reliable. Meanwhile, military presence in outer space is expanding rapidly. Space is not only about rockets and satellites. It is the backbone of any modern army. Navigation, intelligence gathering, communications, and drone coordination all rely on space-based systems. Disrupting or destroying satellites can cripple an opponent's capabilities. In 2007, China successfully tested an anti-satellite missile, destroying one of its own satellites in orbit. The United States and India have also demonstrated similar capabilities. These actions have already added to the growing cloud of space debris but signal something more important. Space is now a military domain. Beyond kinetic weapons, countries are developing orbital platforms for surveillance, signal interception, and even cyber operations launched from space. In 2019, the US established the Space Force as a separate military branch, tasked with defending American interests beyond Earth's atmosphere, including its satellite infrastructure and communications systems. Taken together, these developments show that modern war is rapidly moving away from the familiar images of tanks, rifles, and trenches. Today's armed forces are becoming intricate, interlinked systems in which AI, cyber weapons, hypersonic missiles, and satellites all operate in sync. Control over information, time, and space is becoming more crucial than territorial control. And all of this is not tomorrow's challenge. It is happening right now. Adapting to new threats. The challenges of modern warfare. Warfare in the 21st century is no longer shaped solely by tanks, aircraft, or traditional armies. Today's threats are far more complex, diffuse, and unpredictable. Modern militaries are facing a rapidly shifting landscape in which conventional strategies no longer guarantee success. From asymmetric conflicts to hybrid tactics, and with all our technological advancements, the human dimension of warfare remains as vital as ever. A major challenge in today's conflicts is the growing role of asymmetric warfare. In this type of conflict, one side is often a conventional state military, while the other is made up of non-state actors, insurgent groups, terrorist networks, or loosely connected cells. These groups, though outmatched in firepower, rely on unconventional methods, ambushes, guerrilla attacks, suicide bombings, and improvised explosive devices. The war in Afghanistan illustrates this vividly. Despite having the world's most advanced military capabilities, NATO forces struggled to gain lasting control over an enemy that knew the terrain, operated in small units, and moved fluidly within civilian populations. The Taliban, with minimal infrastructure, used hit-and-run tactics to outlast their technologically superior opponents over 2 decades. The rise of ISIS introduced another layer to asymmetric warfare. It wasn't just their battlefield presence that made them dangerous. It was their global outreach. ISIS built a virtual caliphate on the internet, using social media for propaganda, recruitment, and psychological operations. Their methods showed how irregular forces could manipulate perception and inspire lone wolf attacks far beyond the physical borders of the conflict. While asymmetric threats have changed how wars are fought, another development has further complicated the picture: hybrid warfare. Hybrid tactics combine conventional military force with cyber attacks, information warfare, and political destabilization. The aim isn't necessarily to win a war in the traditional sense, but to blur the line between war and peace, creating confusion and paralysis in the target society. A striking example is Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014. That operation was not conducted solely through tanks or missiles. It was executed through a mixture of anonymous military units, fake news, cyber attacks on Ukrainian government systems, and psychological manipulation. This type of warfare sidesteps clear military confrontation and instead overwhelms the target with ambiguity and denial, making defense and response much more difficult. Hybrid warfare works because it strikes at the soft spots of open societies. Their free press, political polarization, and digital dependence. An election can be swayed without a single shot. A country's infrastructure can be frozen by hackers. Public opinion can be poisoned by false narratives. In this kind of environment, the front lines are everywhere, on screens, in courtrooms, and inside people's minds. And yet, for all the shifts in technology and tactics, one factor has remained irreplaceable: the human element. No matter how advanced artificial intelligence becomes, war is ultimately made up of human decisions, values, and instincts. Leadership, judgment, and responsibility cannot be outsourced to algorithms. Modern commanders must make decisions in real time, under pressure, with lives at stake. Whether authorizing a drone strike or managing a counterinsurgency operation, they must weigh not just tactical efficiency but also legal, ethical, and emotional consequences. Even the operators of remote weapons, thousands of kilometers from the battlefield, face psychological strain, legal scrutiny, and moral responsibility. Moreover, in modern military operations, especially in urban or civilian-populated zones, human insight becomes essential. Soldiers often serve not just as fighters, but as peacekeepers, mediators, and diplomats. In Iraq, missions often depended on building local trust, understanding tribal structures, and navigating cultural dynamics, tasks no AI system could yet perform with the same nuance. In modern warfare, human awareness, empathy, and ethical clarity have become just as operationally important as firepower or logistics. The future battlefield may be shaped by data and machines, but it will always be defined by the choices of people. A global perspective, international cooperation and conflict. In the 21st century, the global security landscape is undergoing a profound transformation. As military, economic, and technological power shifts across the world, international cooperation and competition are becoming increasingly intertwined. While some nations forge new partnerships to address shared challenges, others prepare for confrontation, redefining the rules of engagement on a global scale. A key element of this shift is the rise of new military powers, most notably China and India. Both nations have invested heavily in defense modernization, expanding their capabilities across land, sea, air, cyber, and space. China, in particular, has emerged as a global military force, doubling its defense spending over the past decade to become the second-largest military spender in the world, after the United States. With a focus on naval expansion, cyber warfare, and missile systems, China aims to assert regional dominance, especially in the South China Sea, where it has built artificial islands and militarized disputed territories. India, while following a different path, is also transforming its defense posture. With ongoing border tensions with China and a long-standing rivalry with Pakistan, India has become the third-largest military spender globally. It is developing its nuclear triad, expanding its indigenous arms industry, and strengthening defense ties with other democracies such as the United States, Japan, and Australia, particularly through the Quad Alliance, which seeks to ensure a free and open Indo-Pacific. As these powers rise, the world is also witnessing the return of familiar geopolitical rivalries. The relationship between the West and Russia has entered a new phase of confrontation, often referred to as a new Cold War. Since the annexation of Crimea in 2014 and the full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, tensions have escalated dramatically. NATO, once considered by some to be in strategic decline, has regained urgency and cohesion. Sweden and Finland applied for NATO membership, breaking decades of neutrality, while Eastern European members such as Poland and the Baltic states have significantly increased defense spending and troop readiness. Meanwhile, the rivalry between the United States and China continues to intensify. Beyond military buildup, it now includes economic decoupling, technological competition, and conflicting visions for global governance. Washington's growing cooperation with Asian allies is mirrored by Beijing's increasing engagement with states through initiatives like the Belt and Road and New Security Pacts. Flashpoints like Taiwan, the South China Sea, and cyber-espionage are fueling this rivalry, with many analysts warning of a potential military confrontation if diplomatic mechanisms fail. Yet amid these divides, international cooperation remains a vital component of global security. Even in a fragmented world, many nations recognize that some threats cannot be faced alone. Terrorism, for instance, remains a persistent challenge that transcends borders, ideologies, and military alliances. International efforts such as the Global Coalition to Defeat ISIS, which includes over 80 countries, have been instrumental in dismantling terrorist networks and coordinating intelligence sharing, airstrikes, and humanitarian aid. Similarly, peacekeeping operations under the United Nations continue to play a crucial role in stabilizing conflict zones. From Mali to Lebanon, over 70,000 peacekeepers are currently deployed, tasked not only with maintaining ceasefires but also with protecting civilians, supporting elections, and rebuilding institutions. While peacekeeping missions face criticism over resources, efficiency, and risks, they remain one of the few tools through which the global community can respond collectively to instability. Another powerful example of cooperation lies in disaster relief and humanitarian response, where military assets are increasingly used for non-combat operations. In the aftermath of natural disasters, such as the 2010 earthquake in Haiti or the 2023 Turkey, Syria earthquake, militaries from around the world deployed transport aircraft, field hospitals, and engineering units to provide urgent aid. These efforts not only save lives but also build trust and show how defense infrastructure can be used to serve humanity in times of crisis. Moreover, growing concerns about climate change, pandemics, and cybersecurity are pushing nations to think more broadly about what constitutes a threat. In these areas, military cooperation becomes not just desirable but necessary. The sharing of satellite data to monitor environmental threats, joint cyber defense exercises, and coordinated vaccine logistics during the COVID-19 pandemic are all examples of security evolving beyond the battlefield. Ultimately, the story of international security today is one of contradiction. Rising powers are reshaping the global balance. Old rivalries are resurfacing with dangerous new dimensions. And yet, at the same time, states continue to find ways to collaborate. Because in a world of globalized threats, no nation, no matter how powerful, can stand alone. The future of the military. Adapting to an uncertain world. The world is entering an era of profound uncertainty, marked by rapid technological change, shifting geopolitical alliances, and increasingly complex threats. In this environment, militaries around the globe face a critical challenge: how to adapt, evolve, and prepare for conflicts that may look nothing like those of the past. The future of the military will not be defined solely by hardware or firepower, but by agility, digital resilience, and a clear understanding of the ethical boundaries of innovation. Modern threats emerge faster than ever before. The rise of artificial intelligence, hypersonic missiles, space-based systems, and cyber weapons has compressed decision-making timelines and eroded traditional military advantages. To survive and succeed in this landscape, militaries must become agile and flexible, capable of adapting doctrine, training, and procurement systems in real time. The war in Ukraine has shown that adaptability can be a decisive factor. Ukrainian forces, though initially outgunned, used commercial drone technology, decentralized command structures, and crowdsourced intelligence to offset the conventional power of a larger military. The ability to rapidly integrate civilian technology into military operations, from satellite imagery provided by private companies to encrypted communication apps, has created a new model of responsiveness and innovation. Traditional defense institutions, which often take years to develop and deploy new systems, must rethink their approach. The U.S. Department of Defense, for instance, has launched several initiatives to speed up innovation cycles, including the Defense Innovation Unit (DIU), which partners with startups to accelerate the adoption of emerging technologies. Likewise, NATO has established the Diana Accelerator to promote military tech development across the alliance. But agility is only part of the equation. As warfare becomes increasingly digital, cybersecurity and data protection are now as critical as securing physical territory. Modern militaries rely on vast, interconnected systems, communications networks, battlefield sensors, logistics platforms, satellite constellations, and cloud-based data centers. Any breach in this digital infrastructure can cripple entire operations. In 2020, the SolarWinds cyber attack exposed vulnerabilities in U.S. government and defense contractor systems, highlighting the ease with which sophisticated adversaries can infiltrate supply chains. Similarly, ransomware attacks have targeted hospitals, pipelines, and even police departments, demonstrating how civilian infrastructure is now a battlefield, and how military cyber units must increasingly defend far beyond the perimeter of traditional combat zones. To address this, countries are investing in dedicated cyber commands, such as the US Cyber Command and its equivalents in the UK, France, and Australia. These units are tasked not only with defensive operations, but with active cyber engagement, disrupting hostile networks, gathering intelligence, and preempting digital threats before they escalate. However, the embrace of advanced technology also brings a new set of ethical challenges, especially when it comes to autonomous systems and AI-driven decision-making. The question is no longer whether AI will be used in combat, but how and under what constraints. Autonomous drones, for instance, are already capable of identifying and engaging targets without direct human input. While this may increase efficiency, it raises profound concerns about accountability, civilian harm, and the potential for machines to make lethal decisions without human oversight. The 2020 UN report on Libya cited the possible use of an autonomous drone that hunted targets independently, a moment many consider a turning point in the evolution of warfare. These developments have sparked international debate. Some countries and organizations, including the European Union and the International Committee of the Red Cross, are calling for strict regulations or outright bans on killer robots. Others argue that banning such systems may be unrealistic, and instead propose frameworks that ensure meaningful human control remains in all use of force decisions. Military ethics are no longer a purely theoretical discipline. They are now an operational necessity. Officers and strategists must be trained not only in tactics and logistics, but in law, ethics, and philosophy. New questions arise. How do you assign responsibility for the actions of a machine? What happens if an algorithm makes a mistake? And how do you ensure that AI used in war reflects the values of the society it serves? The future of the military depends not just on technological superiority, but on the ability to integrate innovation responsibly, protect digital frontiers, and remain agile in the face of evolving threats. In a world where the line between soldier and coder, weapon and algorithm, is increasingly blurred, adaptation is not a choice. It is the only path forward. The human cost of warfare. A lasting impact. War has always been more than a contest of arms or a test of political will. Beyond the battlefield maps and strategic doctrines lies a deeper, often hidden reality: the human cost of warfare. In the 21st century, an era defined by precision weapons, drones, and cyber attacks, the suffering endured by individuals, families, and entire communities remains as devastating as ever. From psychological trauma to the long-term challenges faced by veterans, and the vital importance of peacekeeping and conflict prevention, the human impact of war is both lasting and profound. Modern warfare leaves deep psychological scars, not only on those who fight, but also on civilians caught in the crossfire. For soldiers, the experiences of combat, intense fear, moral injury, survivor's guilt, can result in post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, and anxiety. In the United States alone, it's estimated that between 11% and 20% of veterans from operations in Iraq and Afghanistan suffer from PTSD in any given year. Many struggle with nightmares, hypervigilance, and emotional detachment long after leaving the battlefield. The burden is especially heavy among those involved in urban warfare or counterinsurgency operations, where the distinction between combatants and civilians is blurred. Soldiers are often forced to make split-second decisions in morally ambiguous situations, choices that can haunt them for years. At the same time, exposure to improvised explosive devices and other blast-related injuries has been linked to traumatic brain injury, TBI, further compounding psychological and cognitive difficulties. But the psychological toll of war is not limited to combatants. Civilians in war zones, especially women and children, endure extreme trauma. In Syria, Yemen, Ukraine, and countless other conflict areas, civilians have witnessed the destruction of their homes, the deaths of loved ones, and the collapse of basic services. Children who grow up surrounded by violence are more likely to develop toxic stress, which impairs brain development and can lead to lifelong emotional and physical health problems. In the aftermath of war, another challenge arises: supporting veterans as they transition back into civilian life. This includes not only treatment for physical injuries, such as amputations or spinal damage, but also long-term mental health care, employment support, housing assistance, and reintegration programs. Countries like the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom have developed extensive Veterans Affairs departments. But even these face criticism for bureaucratic delays and underfunding. The suicide rate among veterans remains alarmingly high. In the US, an average of 17 veterans die by suicide each day, according to a 2022 report from the Department of Veterans Affairs. Many veterans report feeling isolated, misunderstood, or forgotten. Programs that provide peer counseling, job training, and mental health outreach have proven effective, but they require sustained investment and societal commitment. Reintegration is not a one-time event. It is a process that can take years, and sometimes a lifetime. Meanwhile, efforts to prevent war and build peace have become more urgent than ever. Peacekeeping missions under the United Nations and other international organizations have played a critical role in reducing violence and creating space for political solutions. In countries like Liberia, Sierra Leone, and East Timor, peacekeepers help restore order, monitor ceasefires, and protect civilians from mass atrocities. Today, over 70,000 UN peacekeepers are deployed in hotspots like Mali, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and South Sudan. While these missions face logistical, political, and security challenges, studies show that their presence significantly lowers the risk of renewed conflict. A 2017 study published in International Organization found that robust peacekeeping forces reduced the likelihood of civil war reigniting by more than 60%. However, military intervention is not the only tool for peace. Diplomacy, humanitarian aid, and early warning systems are equally vital. Initiatives that support refugee resettlement, education, and conflict mediation can break cycles of violence before they escalate. Organizations like the International Crisis Group and the Geneva Center for Security Policy work behind the scenes to promote dialogue, build trust, and defuse tensions in fragile regions. Increasingly, peacebuilding also involves addressing root causes: poverty, inequality, resource scarcity, and governance failure. Without these structural issues being resolved, even the most successful military campaigns can leave a vacuum that extremists or warlords will eventually fill. That is why post-conflict reconstruction must be more than just rebuilding infrastructure. It must also include justice, reconciliation, and inclusive political solutions. Ultimately, the future of global security depends on our ability to recognize that the costs of war are not only strategic, but deeply human. Long after the guns fall silent, trauma lingers, families grieve, and societies struggle to rebuild. By investing in mental health care, veteran support, peacekeeping, and diplomacy, the international community can begin to reduce the long shadow that war casts across generations.